This is the podcast for people who want to give back, get involved, and do more in their community, but aren't sure where to start. I'm Stephanie Dyer, and every week my co-host Courtney Dickey and I dig into the issues shaping how we give, why we give, and what actually makes a difference here in Central Texas. Today, Courtney and I are talking about one of the hottest topics. Well, we have a lot going on, so maybe if you remove politics from your news, and that is AI. I recently made a career move to an AI company, and it has me thinking even more about this space. And I know we've talked about technology before, but I wanted to hone in on AI given the recent February releases of ChatGPT and Claude. They're experiencing more growth than any company ever before. So let's talk about it. In my career, I've been drawn to efficiency. I like to get into the boring, repetitive stuff on people's plates and streamline it and automate it and make everyone's lives what I think is better. They get to go focus on the things that actually matter and are interesting. And AI can do that a lot better than I've ever even been able to do. And there's also some very valid concerns. There's misinformation. We've seen it. There's potentially issues in elections and how that information is spread. Creatives can get undercut, even though I'm very happy to see there's quite a resistance on that front. There's environmental impact that we're very unsure of right now. And higher categories of jobs might be disappearing faster than anyone is prepared for. And those jobs are the ones that used to have very sure paths from college. So there was a sense of certainty. And with higher costs to go to college and this uncertain path, what does that even mean? And here's where I keep landing. If we're heading towards a real economic transition, and I think we are, nonprofits and community are going to matter more than they ever have. Your neighbors, your local organizations. It's why in the long run, I want to believe it's not all doom and gloom. Of course, we don't know what we don't know. It's all going to depend on how we use this technology and how quickly we can shift under a new economy over the next, 5 to 10 years. Again, we don't know what we don't know. But the community and the hope we work less or we work on more interesting things that matter is a lot of what actually gets me excited about the work we do. Economy aside, there's a genuinely optimistic side of AI. For one, it should free nonprofits up to spend more time and money on their actual mission instead of back office busy work. Courtney and I will explore that a little bit more. And two, in medicine, the acceleration is real. We may live longer. We hopefully live better. We may get to spend more time with the people we love, which brings me to today's guest. Breakthrough T1D, the world's leading nonprofit dedicated to funding type 1 diabetes research and advocacy. The technological advancements happening in T1D screening, therapy, and the pursuit of a cure are exactly the kind of progress that decades of research, funding, and relentless advocacy make possible. And the kind of progress AI stands to accelerate even further. We don't talk about AI with Breakthrough T1D. We do get to talk about all these really cool advancements and what Breakthrough T1D is doing. Jenna Medford, Chapter Senior Director of Greater Austin Breakthrough T1D, joins us to talk about where things stand and where they're headed. Let's get into it and escape into a cause. Hello, Miss Courtney Dickey.
Hello, Stephanie Dyer.
How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. You, just real quick, I know you are Make-A-Wish and
I live here, I give here with our friend Piper.
Yes.
I know.
How's that going?
It's fantastic.
Amplify Austin. Yep, we're going to...
We just had Amplify Austin.
Just had Amplify Austin. Okay,
Yes.
That's amazing. We'll talk about that in a future episode. How's that going?
It's great. It's very educational to sit on the board of a nonprofit whose sole commitment, mission, and purpose is to involve Central Texans in philanthropic giving, whatever that means, right? We always talk about, or Piper especially, like the 5 T's, right? You've got the talent and the tithing and you've got the skills and all those things. So the treasure, whatever way you have to give. And so rallying people around that idea and that philosophy and incorporating it into their being and what it means to be a citizen of Austin. It's very cool to sit there and find ways and create ways to motivate people to take that on.
Yeah. And you wasted no time from being president of Junior League.
I know. And I've just joined the Girl Scouts of Central Texas Board of Directors. So I'm really excited about that too, because I'm also a Girl Scout troop leader.
Of course you.
I know. I sat down with the women and they were just wonderful. And then they asked, I was like, can I do 3? And so far I can, but I get so passionate. I get so excited and I see so many opportunities to plug in. And so I just jump. I know.
You are such a cool role model.
Stop it.
No, really. Okay, so you're on 3 boards.
I am currently sitting on 3 boards. That's correct.
Okay, so Make-A-Wish Central Texas?
Central and South Texas. So we
And
have an
South.
office in San Antonio too. I know. Another one's in Westlake.
Okay,
Yep.
and I live here, I give here, and the Girl Scouts
of Central Texas. That's our local council. I know. Yeah.
Okay, well, in terms of like mine, I'm getting through junior league.
Yes, your provisional year.
My provisional year.
But you'll still stay, and I'm still a junior league member.
Yeah, I'm excited
You'll be an active member.
Yeah, I want to join maybe like a philanthropy. What do you think?
Yeah, for your placement?
Yeah, next year.
Yes, a nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be
go
good.
out in the community.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, and I am
What about
wrapping
Young
up.
Men's Business League?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up my VP of membership.
Is that Young Men's? Am I saying that right?
Young Men's Service League.
Service League. I always okay.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up my membership drive. That's been a lot of work.
Yes.
And I'm after 2 years on the board, it's good to take a little rest.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we have
Aging out of junior league.
and aging ceilings on. You can't be president and be 70 years old, or you can't be president 8 years in a row. Like you get it once, and then
It's also
and
a
then
lot
you
of
need
work.
to go. It's a lot of work.
With not much recognition.
Oh gosh, no. Hello. That's unfortunately the reality of nonprofits. But to your point, you give opportunity to somebody else. Somebody else lead. Somebody else take on this experience. Somebody else do something different with it. Try something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So wrapping up that, super happy to be serving just with my son in a non-board capacity next year.
I know. His senior year.
Senior year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. And so one thing that's been really on my mind lately is by the time this airs, I'll have switched jobs to, I've got some thoughts on this. AI is coming, whether you want it to come or not. It's here.
It's very much here.
It is here. My son and I, who's 17, we go back and forth all the time because he is just pained by this.
Yeah.
Being in the creative sector, he wants to get into film. And, so we have conversations about this. There's also environmental implications, which I've looked into a lot of are there ways around protecting your environment? And there's a lot of sources that say yes. So
Yeah.
I don't know. People might know it better than I do.
Yeah.
But there's downsides of AI, right? But what I do want to talk about, since it's here, and since I had a weekend spent with AI while I had a cold, I got to tell you about that real quick.
Yeah, please.
So had a cold, as you know, because I moved our recording Thursday and Friday, and all really through the weekend, but it got good enough where I just stayed in my house, had no plans, canceled everything, did not even hang out with the kids. And I decided to just get my computer and open up Claude, downloaded it, and started building my husband's CRM because he has an insurance agency, Nightlight Insurance.
So smart.
Yeah, and so I started building a CRM because Salesforce is bloated, which is by the way, for y'all that don't know this, a CRM is like your Salesforce. It's your customer relationship manager tool, and it lets you put in all your leads and determine whether you're closing business and kind of monitor your prospects and your clients.
Tons of nonprofits use it as well.
That's it.
Yep.
So that's the point I'm going to get to.
Oh, good.
Exactly. I decided Salesforce is too expensive. It's really bloated. You need administrators. You need people who understand Salesforce. It's a really big implementation. So a lot of nonprofits can't afford it.
No, we have 2 Salesforce engineers on our staff.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's
the for-profit
that's the
company that I
lowest
work
I've ever
for.
heard.
Well, and that's because it's a startup with 240 employees, but 2 of those employees are just committed to Salesforce.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And then, so that's the really bloated, huge enterprise. It's doing very well. It's the number 1 CRM in the world. Then my husband ended up going with one that's owned by Vertifor, and it's called Agency Zoom, and it's an insurance CRM. And I don't like it because it has so many things that I'm used to in an enterprise organization of Salesforce.
Yep.
And I get very frustrated by it. I get frustrated by the data. I get frustrated by what it doesn't sync and what does.
User experience.
Yeah, everything. And we pay for one user $180 a month for this tool.
Okay.
Okay. And it has a lot of integrations with email, integrations with Google reviews so that you get an email right after it closes to say, hey, do you want to leave a review? Which that has done so much good for his business.
Good.
So all these are great, and it's specific to insurance, so it made sense to go that route. But I have so many frustrations, so I decided to just download Claude. And don't get me wrong, I do have a product software technical mind, but I have no coding experience.
Yeah.
Other than using AI for SQL, which is data-driven.
Yes.
And I have some experience, like early on in my career, where I did a lot of VBA, which is Excel coding.
Yeah.
Which is very Nobody talks about that. But decided to try it. I have built like 80% of a CRM over the weekend. Like in 4 days.
That's crazy.
Courtney.
So impressive. I know.
I am.
Are you going to stop paying
I'm
$180 a month?
Soon.
I know.
But we have to get through the roadblocks. Insurance data is very highly regulated. Client data.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that we go through those APIs and everything.
Yes.
But I'm at the point where we can do all manual test data. I literally emailed from the CRM yesterday to Brett, and he said he got it.
And you did it.
And I did it.
Wow.
I'm in disbelief. I'm having a little bit of an existential crisis because I don't understand
how you were able to do that.
I don't get it.
I know.
It not only knew the software, it knew like how to build a CRM.
Yeah.
It knew the industry.
Well, yeah.
So I would say, hey, I didn't like that, or hey, let's do this. Let's add. Oh, I didn't even have to tell it to do resource or referrals. How did you find
it? Knew
us?
that. It
knew exactly what to list.
Yeah.
Or it knew like the line of insurance. It knew there was personal and commercial, and it listed all of them. I didn't even have to tell it.
No.
Like think about how it used to be to build software. It used to be like, I want to see auto and home and umbrella. And right, you would just have to type it up and then go send it to some software engineer, and you'd have to help them build it. And you'd have to work probably with a technical product manager, and it would take a year.
And now the LLMs. I know.
It's blowing my mind. And look, the creative space, I don't want it to touch. We're going to have to figure out like what's going to happen there because it's really sad.
It's super sad. From a legal perspective, like the copyright implications are really interesting.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I hate doing, because I'm an accounting background, I'm a corporate background where it's a lot of repetitive manual stuff.
Absolutely.
There is going to be a shift in our economy.
I completely agree. I think and people continue to describe it as a tool, which is exactly how you've described it, right? Not a replacement, not a source, if you will, an origin of something. It is a tool for efficiency. Some would say tool that enables democratization, right? So to your point, everything that you've just described that you would usually have to have in order to create that CRM costs money and funding and capital that not everybody has. And now you just need whatever you paid for Claude and even the free instances of AI, right? Although keep in mind that anything you put in there, if you're not paying for it and you don't have your own secure instance of it, that is now public domain. So be aware of that. But you can do it for free now. It's amazing when you think about the equity behind it. That will slowly erode, right? As this gets more expensive and more sophisticated, people find ways to monetize because we live in a capitalist society. But it has really changed the game. It's already changing with the workforce, right? And what types of engineers we're looking for and what types of engineers we don't need anymore because they've essentially been replaced. And so it's not just the creative sector that's being negatively impacted. There's all sorts of roles and jobs that are now being replaced by this. We see it in the paper all the time, right? These massive companies and their layoffs because they are investing highly in AI.
It's not just that they're investing in AI so they get rid of people. What I didn't realize until this weekend was that if I'm a new business, I go buy a software tool, but now I'm frustrated with it and I literally can go build my own and then get rid of it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Which means these annual contracts that some of these SaaS-based solutions have forced us into, those are going to go away. There will no longer be annual contracts because it won't make sense anymore.
You just nailed it, though. SaaS companies need to lock in 3 to 5 year deals right now.
Oh, their stock. It's been in a headline, like it's tanked by 30% or something. Like,
but the stock at the business I worked for dropped significantly, and this is why, is one of their products I could probably make in a day. This is one of their acquired products that doesn't bring in too much revenue, but the fact that I could build that in a day is like really scary when I have no technical background. Yeah. I bring it up not to scare like doomsday, but I think the exciting part of this, and also I do want to take a step back. February was the most recent release of some of these coding releases from both Claude, which is owned by Anthropic, and ChatGPT, which is created by OpenAI. Mm-hmm. These February releases are the huge change maker, and there was someone who wrote a big article that went viral that said, this is different. And I'm an engineer and I don't even know where my job will be. This is better than me. Yeah. And so, I think I'm actually less worried for the creatives right now, because, think about it. It's based off code and it knows code so well. Yeah. It's going to probably replace software engineers actually as first. Yeah,
completely agree. It already is. Yeah.
Okay, but I want to talk about the really good stuff on this. Oh, and last thing I'll say is I have shared this news about the CRM I've built with probably like 20 people. And I don't think There's only been 2 people. I've done 30 people that I've shared this with. Only 2 people I've talked to understand the magnitude, I think. Like, it's really, really difficult for people to understand on the software development side. Anyway, I know we're going in forever in software, but one of the biggest things that I think nonprofits could really use, they work on a shoestring budget with few resources.
That's correct.
I think AI is going to completely evolve the nonprofit space. They'll have a better tech stack.
Yep.
With fewer people on the team, they can do more.
Yep. Agreed. Which means that the dollars that they receive, less overhead. Although someone needs to know how to use AI, someone needs to know how to actually be in command of the tool in order to execute what they're trying to, but less overhead, more dollars towards the mission.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many things that they want to do in terms of data and their outreach. There's no question that AI is going to allow them to do that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the good that's going to come out of it. I think we're all in a very uncertain territory about how it's going to affect everyone.
Yes.
But the economy is going to shift greatly.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully, fingers crossed, nonprofits are able to do more and the impact is bigger.
Yeah, that's right. Nonprofits, unfortunately, AI is not going to solve the problems that nonprofits are targeting, right? Which are truly human-centric, typically, or animal-centric, but something that is not solvable behind a computer screen. And it's not just typically data exclusive. It is high touch. It is personable services. And so knowing that nonprofits aren't going to go away, this is something that can only be an enhancement, I think, to what they're able to offer.
I love that you just said that because that is the beauty, right? Nonprofits don't want to sit in their back office on a computer dealing with data, figuring out how to handle donors. They don't want to deal with all the corporate back office stuff. So if we can build it where it's more streamlined and easy and it's lower budget, they're able to go out in the community and serve others in person. And I think that's beautiful. And I think we're going to start having more free time to be in person.
Which is lovely. Let's try to pull out the positives of this is instead of the mundane tasks and having to spend hours on something that now takes seconds, what could you do with that saved time? And that's where we push our message of you can go out in the community, you can create community, you can be a friend. Yeah, do good with that extra time.
I completely agree. I don't know if we talked about this. In 1930, the economist John Maynard Keynes.
No.
Have we talked about him?
I don't think so.
Okay. 1930 economist John Maynard Keynes, Keynes.
So almost 100 years ago.
100 years ago, he predicted and announced to everyone that innovation and technological advancements would increase productivity so much that the work week would dwindle to 15 hours.
Huh. Isn't that amazing?
He said his grandchildren would be able to experience this.
Yeah.
And isn't that
really
incredible
interesting
that we're not there?
Yes. And how quickly we could get there with AI.
That's right. The question is how much does capitalism and
Yeah.
we're going to have to figure out like what demands our time.
I agree. Yeah. And what defines work? Because although we're able to get through the work we have more quickly, highly dependent on sector, but in general, is there more work? Does more work come?
Which we saw happen.
Yeah, I know.
I know. But I will say that if we could ever live in a world where everyone feels like their work week could be 3 days, you could do 1 day of whether that's community, being with your family, and then a 3-day weekend. I don't know. I feel like we could get there.
I think that might help mental health.
I think so too.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Really interesting. We might have a very different conversation.
This.
Yeah, in a year.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Court.
Thanks, Steph.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Today I have Jenna Medford. Jenna is the chapter director of the Greater Austin chapter for Breakthrough T1D.
Yes.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
T1D, type 1 diabetes. Can you share a little bit about what your organization does?
Yeah, so we are Breakthrough T1D, formerly known as JDRF. So people up to 2 years ago would have known us as Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and we are the largest nonprofit for type 1 diabetes and funder of type 1 diabetes research. Our mission, unlike our name, hasn't changed in the 54 years since it was originally founded by two moms sitting around a table that had two sons with type 1 diabetes. And that is to improve the lives of those living with type 1 today and tomorrow by accelerating life-changing breakthroughs and to prevent and treat type 1 and its complications. But then our purpose statement as well is to drive towards those cures, but really until we do that, back to the mission is to improve the lives of those living with type 1. And that goes back into the research, which I'm sure we'll touch on later.
Yeah, the largest nonprofit organization that is aiming for a cure of type 1 diabetes.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And specifically for type 1 diabetes, whereas you have American Diabetes Association, which covers people with type 2 and type 1, but we're specifically for type 1 diabetes.
So how did you get into this position, Jenna? How did you get here?
So I never really saw myself as somebody getting involved in the nonprofit space or fundraising, maybe as I got older with my kids and volunteering or doing some time with my kids' school PTA and things like that. But my daughter was diagnosed at the age of 4, 8 years ago with type 1 diabetes in 2018. And so I actually was in the medical field. I was leaving that job after 10 years to go pursue some other things. And so I had actually some time off in between those two opportunities. And that was actually when we discovered that she was displaying some symptoms of type 1 diabetes. And I think, thankfully, because of my medical background, I noticed those early on. Looking back, it feels like it was over days of time, but really it was probably 36 to 48 hours from the first onset of symptoms. And so she got diagnosed. And then a year later, I went on and I did that next project of my career. But a year later, a position opened up with, at the time, JDRF in 2019, literally the first of the year. I went and interviewed with the executive director. He said, "You're overqualified for this position." And I said, "I don't care. I just want to be involved with this organization. I need to work. My work really needs to be fulfilling for me." That's why I was in the medical field and doing what I did, because I can't just sit behind a desk. And so I started with the organization and really have done everything from outreach and community engagement, volunteer management, managing our walk program, and then eventually became the chapter director for the Greater Austin chapter. So here I am.
Here you are. Yeah.
So 8 years later.
And maybe we can get a little bit later into how T1D, of course, impacted you and why you're so deeply connected to it. Want to dive a little bit into the impact, but also just, I know this is a national, actually global organization.
Correct.
And this is Greater Austin. And can you maybe just define a little bit about this community specifically?
Yeah, so the Greater Austin chapter is a part of the Southern Texas Territory. So we get into a little bit of semantics there, but the Southern Texas Territory includes our Greater Houston chapter and our South Central Texas chapter. And so if you look at the state of Texas, our territory includes anything south of Waco, across and down. And each chapter within that territory has its own staff, its own board of directors, its own budgets and revenue goals and events. Greater Austin covers the Austin city limits, as well as going north just below Waco, your Temple, Killeen area, going into the hill country of Dripping Springs, Blanco, Marble Falls, all the way over to Fredericksburg and some of the smaller communities there, going all the way east towards Giddings, and then going all the way down south to San Marcos. I manage the Greater Austin chapter here and staff, but we work collectively as a territory the work that we do locally focuses around Greater Austin. So
Great. So y'all collaborate together, and it seems like wherever you live, you can
find somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. In what ways does your organization impact people or the cause that your organization serves?
With our name change, we really wanted to define in our name what we do. And so we are making breakthroughs in research. We are making breakthroughs in our advocacy work. And that goes from our staff and our volunteers really spending hours and hours working with elected officials. Advocacy is really important in the work that we do. And it affects so many people, not only in Austin and our chapter, but globally. And so working with elected officials, not only in Austin, but going to DC and on the Hill as well. And this is really working to influence how dollars are designated to go towards T1D research. And that, specifically gets funneled through the NIH and getting the special diabetes program that's approved every year. And so there's a lot of work that goes into that.
So government funds a lot of times are funneled through the National Institute of Health. Is that right?
Correct.
Is it Institute? Yeah.
Yes.
And so NIH, and then you are trying to drive some of those funds towards Breakthrough T1D or just research towards
Type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And then locally, we work with our volunteers to reach out and provide support and resources to our families that live with type 1 diabetes every day or are newly diagnosed. And that starts with getting connected with them from our healthcare partners, whether it be Dell Children's, Texas Children's, or an adult endocrinology group, or they reach out to us on their own, word of mouth. But those are our three main pillars are research, advocacy, and community engagement. And so locally here in Austin, we're really focused on the community engagement piece.
Great. So that summarizes what the mission is and what the organization does. What is the impact of type 1 diabetes on
Numbers?
What
Yeah.
are those statistics?
So globally, 9 million people in the U.S. live with type 1 diabetes. 1.5 million of those are in the United States. On average, about 40,000 of those are diagnosed every year. And unlike our previous name, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, there was a myth that type 1 diabetes was a juvenile disease. It used to be called juvenile diabetes, then progressed into type 1 diabetes. But again, another reason for our change in name is to better represent the people that have type 1 diabetes. And so now at least half of our diagnoses every year are in adults. So it can really affect anybody at any stage and age. It has no discrimination. We have folks that have kids that they were diagnosed when they were a year. We've met adults that were diagnosed when they were 50 and have lived their whole life and now have a new normal. So it really can affect you at any time. And then fiscally, it's a really expensive disease. And that's why our advocacy work is so important. So annually, the cost of type 1 in the US is $30 billion. But an individual living with type 1 diabetes can expect to spend around $20,000. And that also depends on if you have insurance, if you're a private pay person, if you're in the Medicaid system, and that to be able to have access to all of the devices, and that includes continuous glucose monitors and the insulin pumps, to be able to give you the best outcomes, that can be really expensive. So again, that's why we go to DC and advocate so much so that people can have access to these great technologies that we have worked to put on the market with all these different companies, but also to work to cap insulin prices as well. Because somebody with type 1 diabetes has to have insulin, whether it's through a pump or an injection via syringe. So that is a non-negotiable. So we work really hard to cap those prices so that somebody doesn't have to go without or ration it, which some people do. So
Yeah, a couple things. So one is, I think it's the average American cannot pay for a sudden emergency expense, right, without going into debt. And I think I've heard anywhere from like $1,000 to $5,000. So if you are suddenly tacking on a $20,000 expense to a family, probably not achievable for a lot of families.
it's hard. Thankfully, Austin has healthcare providers that work with their patients, especially in the pediatric space. So they have their sliding scale medical clinics and things like that. There have been some of these medical devices that have been approved to be covered by Medicaid, which is great, so that more people have access to them. But it's still a struggle. I mean, they have to fight to be able to get them. And I think that's where we see that outcomes are a little tough. When we talk to school nurses, they're really worried about their students that come to see them. They worry about them over the weekend, and some that we talk to. And so that's why we're really passionate, just not only about advocacy to make sure that every family has the opportunity to have access to these resources, but also so that these families know that we're here in Austin or wherever they live, so that they can reach out to us and we can connect them with a volunteer or somebody in the area. Our website also has resources to navigate through insurance, or if you're a cash pay type 1 diabetic, to get coupons for supplies or insulin and things like that. But really wanting people to know that we're here so that they can reach out to us and really take advantage of these free resources that we provide.
So you're dealing with something new, type 1 diabetes. I'm just thinking, imagining this, right? So you have something new that's happening oftentimes with a child. But to your point, that myth stuck, because I do think of T1D as this is something that is diagnosed with children.
Yeah.
So that myth really stuck. So I'm glad y'all changed your name so
Yeah.
we can start getting, I guess, the message out for people like me who are still stuck in that mindset. And so you have this new information. You're dealing with something that is completely new, expensive, time consuming. I'm just thinking, even if the expense goes away because you're navigating all these resources and you may have a lower income or whatever it is to be eligible for these, the time intensiveness to go and find those resources, and I imagine it to be very draining. So Breakthrough T1D seems like it's a really good resource to help alleviate some of that.
Absolutely. And we try to make it really easy for people to be able to navigate. And especially, you talk about having the time that it takes to be able to do that. And I think we always say that somebody with type 1 diabetes has to make an extra, say, 300 decisions every day, whether it's, am I going to go low working out? How many carbs are in this meal? Did I dose for this insulin? There's always all these extra decisions going on in your brain. And then on top of that, trying to figure out, how am I going to provide care for my child or for myself or for my spouse? So we really want to make it easy for them to find, navigate, and be able to do on their own, but for us to be able to point them in that direction.
Yeah. I think we can talk though. There's some research advancements though. Right?
Yes.
So it's on some positive news.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot is happening on the R&D side. Can you share a little bit of that?
I feel like when I started with Breakthrough T1D in the beginning, things were really exciting. Things were always happening. Every year locally, we provide a mission update where we have, whether it's a researcher come in, or like this year, we have Dr. Blevins from Texas Diabetes and Endocrinology helping us with that research update. But in the beginning, I felt like the updates were there, but they weren't as frequent. And now it just seems like you can't keep up with the news of the advancements that are coming. And to break it down in a more digestible way, there are 3 main areas that we really focus on, or that I would put our research into buckets. So the first I would start with is screening and prevention. So we've been working really hard in screening people to see what their likelihood of developing type 1 diabetes is. And so really that comes from somebody that might have a sibling or a parent or another family member that has type 1 diabetes already. And you can test their antibodies and see, based off of those results, what the likelihood will be of them developing the disease down the road. And then creating disease-modifying therapies, such as this drug called Tzield, which was the first approved immunotherapy put on the market that, thanks to our research, helps delay the onset of type 1 diabetes. And so while it may not completely prevent it, if we can delay and preserve those beta cells that produce our insulin as long as possible, then that's going to keep a healthy pancreas.
And just to make sure I understand this. So this person may have been screened and positive for T1D, or they're at high risk of T1D?
So they have been screened. Based off of the screening, they have certain antibodies that have been identified that say you have this likelihood that at some point you will develop type 1 diabetes. And so you are a candidate to receive this drug. And so it's an infusion every day over 2 weeks that will delay the onset of type 1 diabetes, which is a really big advancement since I've even started.
How often does this person do that? Do they?
Once.
Once. Wow. Okay. So I know nothing. So just to give you a little bit of background on me. So my dad is a family doctor. He's an MD. I told you this. I never wait in waiting rooms. I actually don't even have a doctor in Austin because I'm so used to just calling my dad.
Yeah.
It's such a bad habit. But I'm also the patient that he just stabs me when it's time to get a shot.
Sure.
There's no bedside manner with me.
Right.
And then I've just kind of tuned him out over the years because everyone, whether we're in SeaWorld or a birthday party, everyone's coming to talk to me about medical problems. So I've just started tuning out medical terms my entire life.
Yeah.
So it's embarrassing how little I know with a dad as a doctor, talking biology and medical terms all the time. But after we chatted and you shared just a few bullet points on the breakthroughs, I decided to just go look on my own and check it out. And it is so neat. Like, it's so exciting.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, this was something that they were working on when I first started. And then to see this come to market while I've been with the organization, but also a family that we worked with last year that was our Fund a Cure family for our gala. He's one of our board members. He and his brother both have type 1. And his brother, so he's in his 30s now, but when he was first diagnosed, his brother was actually a part of the trial for this medication all that time ago. Gosh, I'd say 15, 20 years ago, if I'm remembering that correctly for his age. He was in high school when he was participating in this trial, and his parents would drive him 2 hours after school every day to participate in this trial. And he received the medication, and they do think that even though he was diagnosed, that it helped slow the amount of insulin that he required, but it wasn't on the market. It was still in the trial phase. And so now, years later, something that he participated in as a clinical trial is now on the market. And so it just goes to show, these things start years and years and years until they come to get approved and the market for people to have access to. So.
Yeah, it's amazing to see all that time well spent. And now here's the return on that investment. Which is really neat. Okay, so we have the screening. And then I did look, I was curious about the whole family history. It says the general population has about a 1 in 300 risk, but it increases to 1 in 20 for those with an affected family member.
Yes, but then a lot of people don't necessarily have a family history when they're originally diagnosed. There's no known link. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, unlike type 2. So there is obviously no cure. That's why we're here. So they may have a previous autoimmune condition and then develop type 1 diabetes. But a lot of people that originally, like my daughter, we don't have a family history of type 1 diabetes. But then they also say if you have one autoimmune condition, you're bound to develop. It usually comes in twos with autoimmune diseases. Then if you do have an established family history, it tends to then become at higher risk of possibly developing it.
Yeah. So we talked about the screening and then the preventative. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you have the cure.
So then we have our cell therapies, which is ultimately leading to a cure. Like I said, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, so that any autoimmune disease, your body's attacking itself. And so in this case, your body's attacking your beta cells. And so what we're doing with our cell therapy research is working to replace those lost insulin producing cells with donated islet cells that then are protected. Your body can start producing insulin again, which then leads to a cure, is the cure really. And so some of the listeners, your dad may have heard in the news recently, there's a trial that somebody participated in called the Eledon trial, and she has been a recipient of these islet cells and is doing really well. And so that is something that we have helped work towards and fund. And so this is something that is close for people, but now this needs to be scalable for the population and make sure that it's done in a safe way for everybody. And so once that fully comes to market, then that's the next thing is how can we make it scalable and how can we make it safe for everybody? These cell therapies, unfortunately, do come with the added piece of having to take immunosuppressants. And so also, while we're still working on cell therapies, trying to figure out how we can decrease the amount of that immunosuppressants that you are having to receive, because as little immunosuppression as possible is really what you want.
Because then you, I assume, become susceptible to other things.
Correct.
The more you're suppressing your immune
Correct.
system.
Yes.
But that's incredible. And I did look at the Eladon. They were just announcing as recent as March 16th at a conference in Spain that there's even more positive news coming out of this, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But to your point, scalable, safe, affordable, but man, really exciting. I feel like there's been a lot of breakthroughs in the medical world. I know that there's some breakthroughs happening with Alzheimer's, and there's breakthroughs clearly happening with T1D, and it's a really exciting time to keep funding this research and not stop here and keep accelerating it so that we can get to the cure. And that's really exciting, hopefully, for your family and for your daughter.
I mean, I feel very confident. I know that some of this that I mentioned, the cell therapy, will be on the market to be accessible for people. And I feel confident that in her lifetime, she will be a part of something that makes her life easier, requiring less insulin. I feel very confident about that. But while, like I said, these things take years and years, while we're still working on these things, working on technology is also really important. So technology has come miles over the years, even in just the 8 years that she has had type 1. And you may see people wearing a device on their arm that looks like a little circle the size of a quarter. And that's a continuous glucose monitor that will send information to a device like a phone and continuously read their blood sugar, which is great for parents because then that information can be shared to us. So at night or when they're at school or with grandparents, we can always see what their blood sugar readings are. And so that device is changed out every 10 days or so, but it reads their blood sugar constantly.
That has to give you peace of mind as a
It
parent.
does, 100%. I used to set alarms every 2 hours before she got that device to wake up and prick her finger. Poor thing, when her hands are all wet and pruny, you can see the little holes from the years of finger pricks. And then our insulin pumps have come a long way. They're smaller, less bulky, but then the developing automated insulin delivery systems that work with the CGMs, those monitors. So the pumps and the CGMs talk to each other. And so based off of what your blood sugar is, whether it's high or low, then your pump responds to that and can increase the amount of insulin it's giving you or decrease the amount of insulin it gives you. So it really functions as a pancreas on its own. You do have to push insulin to, as we call it, bolus for food and things that you eat and things like that. But that is something that's come a really long way over the years as well. So when we talk about improving the lives while we're driving towards cures, that's what we mean, is progressing technology so that everyone's life is a little bit easier while they're living with the disease until they no longer have it.
For someone like me who's never lived with anyone that has type 1 or type 2 diabetes, do some of these advancements cater to both in terms of the devices and the technology? Yeah. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of the research that we do will benefit those living with type 2 diabetes, can benefit towards cancer research as well. But then the technology, a lot of type 2 diabetics wear CGMs. There's a couple different brands on the market because they're also insulin dependent too. So some of them might even have insulin pumps, but they need to read their blood sugar as well. Women with gestational diabetes wear them. So it can really benefit many people. And then, of course, people that are athletes that wear them for metabolic health, for sports and things like that as well. But gestational diabetes, type 2 diabetes really benefits a wider range of people other than type 1 diabetics.
Yeah, it extends beyond just T1D. That's great. And real quickly, but on average, 80 cents of donor dollars go towards the mission. And, I sometimes just ask a little bit about the financials because I think that's really peace of mind as well. Your dollars and your donations are going to the research.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're really proud of that because I'll say first, we have a really small staff. So while we work remote, so we don't have a brick and mortar building. I have myself and 3 staff under me that work with our volunteers and support our events. And so we really rely on our volunteers and our board of directors. They're a working board. So having them is crucial to support the chapter. And then as far as dollars going towards mission, we really try to be upfront with our donors so that they know where their dollars are going. But I think something that we can be really proud of when I talked about us being a part of the Southern Texas territory is that we can bring their donor dollars back to Texas. And we have 7 projects that are being funded up to $4 million just in Houston alone throughout the medical centers there. And a lot of that is towards cell therapies and cures. And so that's something that we're really proud of and something that our donors are proud to see. They want to see research done everywhere, and they're really proud to see that it's done locally here in Texas as well.
Yeah, a lot of developments here, and Texans are proud.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's good.
Loud and proud.
Yes. Okay, great to hear. Can you tell me just a little bit more about your story with your daughter? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah.
And maybe how T1D or JDRF kind of showed up for your family?
Yeah. So I think me telling this story is also a good example of the way we show up for our families today. And it's one of the reasons why I got involved. We support adults and kids, but I'll take it back to kids just because that's where we were at the time. We were diagnosed at Dell Children's Hospital. We went to our, they call it Dino class, when you're trained on all things type 1 diabetes crash course 2 weeks later. JDRF at the time showed up to that class and they introduced themselves, told us about the organization, and they gave us what we call a bag of hope. And we also have teen kits as well. So it's really dependent upon the age of the kid. And so our bag of hope contained this teddy bear that Emma still has. It's called Rufus. Rufus is still around today, and every bag of hope will never go away. But it also contained resources that we used for a long time, especially when we're navigating this new diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. So it was resources for the parents that were really great, but also books in there that were something that we could read to her that made her learning about her new normal in a more digestible way, age-appropriate way. Our bag has evolved over the years, but we still provide those to our newly diagnosed families whenever we're given the opportunity. And then from there, they received my information, and I received a phone call from one of our dear volunteers. She's a grandmother of a type 1 here in Austin. Her name is Colby, the volunteer. And she called me. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it. I usually don't do that, but I answered it, and she was asking how we were doing. And really, she didn't realize it, but it was a day I really needed to talk to somebody, because your family and friends can be great, but really having somebody to talk to that really understands what you're going through every day, especially when it's new, is really meaningful. So we talked on the phone for 45 minutes, probably not what she had planned or wanted to do in that moment, but she called. She just really gave me some advice, offered to connect me with some people in the community, talked to me about their community event that they do in the fall. So we signed up for that. And that's really how we got plugged into the organization. But that really stuck with me because then I got to meet her in person when I started working with the organization. And like I said, she's still very involved. She chairs our outreach efforts for the territory, not just Austin. And I had lunch with her about a year ago, and she's like, hey, I want to show you something. And she pulled out this spiral notebook that she still had, and she turned it to a page, and it was the notes from the conversation that she had taken from that phone call 8 years ago when she first called us. So it was a really full circle moment for me and our family. And sometimes you need that reason to obviously have a reason to be here, right? But bring you back to the mission and why you're doing this work. And she kept that all these years later, and she still remembers it as much as I do. And so that's what we want to provide to other people. And that's really where it starts. That's the entry point to our organization. So that's how I got connected.
I love that, because I can't imagine what you're going through at the time. You don't know anyone with T1D, right?
Right. We didn't know anybody
right
at all.
So this is brand new
right
for you. And I can't imagine, if I knew you at the time, I would have been no help for you.
I mean, I had a friend that, I loved her, but she was like, hey, can Emma have this popsicle? And I was like, yeah, I just gave her insulin, so let's wait a minute. She just ate. And she's like, well, it's vanilla. And I was like, just because it doesn't have a color doesn't mean that it doesn't have carbs. Type 1s can have anything that they want. We always say there's insulin for that. You can dose for anything, but it is, God bless them, but
that's a bless your heart
yes.
situation.
But it is good to just be surrounded by people at times that know what you're going through, whether you talk about it or not. Just knowing you have people in your corner. They say it's a club you never wanted to be a part of, but you're glad that you are now. I'd say that's true.
Yeah. Again, we talk about nonprofits here, but Courtney and I also talk about community. And sometimes those go, of course, hand in hand, like in this case, where they connect you with that community.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, real quick, good brag. I make every guest. say a good brag, which is, I always say, I feel so guilty asking people who dedicate themselves to nonprofits to be like, hey, what else do you do?
Yeah.
But this could be a small act of kindness to anything, being a great mom or showing up for another nonprofit, whatever that may be. What is something you, Jenna, that is nothing to do with Breakthrough T1D that you can share with us?
I guess I'll just go to, we're in it now. I'm a working mom. I'm running the very busy and robust Austin chapter here. My husband works full time too. We have 2 busy kids in activities, but something that I'm really proud of right now is my son and playing baseball in high school. So he's a freshman. And so we're really proud of that for him, something he's worked for a long time. And so I think it's easy for people to say that they don't have extra time. I've fallen victim of that too, of I'm so busy, I don't have a lot of extra time, but I've really tried to dive into the Baseball Booster Club and work with their fundraising events and helping with their sponsorship and really just diving in and getting to know people and supporting that program. And so volunteering my time a little bit there, but really just being proud of the accomplishments of my kids and trying to immerse myself in those programs in my spare time and really trying to make the time that I have count. And so we're still getting into it and dabbling into it. It just started, but I'm proud of it. And it's a new program for me. So who knows what will happen, but
Yeah. Well done to your son. That's really exciting. It's a big deal to make a team.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good brag. So let me tell you a real quick story. So my son is in basketball, 7th grade, made the A team, and they ask for volunteers to man the concession stand. So if your kid is playing A team, can you go do B team? And then B team, can you go help during the A team concessions? And I think a lot of people take for granted these volunteers at school events. Like, oh, it's just a mom doing, whatever, or it can be a dad too. But they just kind of take it for granted. Go spend extra time before, after, go help the concessions, go help with a PTA program, go help with the schools. Don't take it for granted that all of these people, and a majority of moms who also work, and don't let there be one volunteer to take it all, right?
Exactly.
Unloading the burden across volunteers.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to volunteers across the board. I can say we're really proud of our program, the Booster. It's very evenly split of moms and dads, which is really, I think, unique too. But I think whether you're at a school program or volunteers for Breakthrough T1D or another nonprofit in Austin, you literally cannot do it without the volunteers. And also, you can't rely on your same core group of volunteers. You really have to make sure you're building a pipeline and using people to the skills that they want to display or that they're good at, like finding something that really fits with them. You can't rely on the same group of people. It can't be done without the volunteers. If there weren't volunteers at concessions, the concessions would be closed.
Thanks for sharing that, Jenna. And that's really a really good brag. How can people show up for Breakthrough T1D?
We have people that can volunteer for our events. Like I said earlier, after COVID, we locally went remote. So some chapters do have an office, but here in Austin, we are remote. So what volunteering looks like for us did change a little bit because there isn't your standard office to go to and stuff envelopes or put stickers on bags and things like that. So volunteering does look a little different. It is typically event based. And so we have 2 larger events throughout the year and then some smaller ones sprinkled in.
Yeah, let's talk about those 2 events.
Yeah. So we have 2 large fundraising events. Our community event that's in the fall is called our Breakthrough T1D Walk. This year it will be Sunday, November 8th at Pop Stroke. And this, like I said, is a community family-friendly event. It's one of the largest peer-to-peer events of its kind in the U.S. And so something, again, that we're really proud of. We usually here in Austin have about 1,500 to 2,000 people attend on a Sunday. Just in the morning, leading up to it, people will register a team and fundraise throughout that time. Or if they're new into the organization, we just encourage them to come. It's a great way to be introduced to the organization as far as participating in something, because the walk, like many in Austin, is just a really great way to celebrate our Type 1 community, the people that support them, and the hard work that we're doing as an organization. But people will sign up family teams, get creative with their team names. They'll fundraise. We have some that fundraise up to $25,000 per team. They'll come with their family and friends and create t-shirts so that they're all in matching t-shirts. So sometimes we'll do a t-shirt contest to pick the most creative. And then it's also a really good way, not only to volunteer day of for like student groups, NCL or something like that, but for our corporate partners as well to get involved. We're finding in Austin that since COVID, a lot of businesses are, while some still sponsor as far as dollars go, a lot are shifting to wanting to promote employee engagement. And so a lot of companies will sign up groups of people to volunteer for those events, or they'll do corporate teams and do some internal competition with fundraising with their employees to engage them. And
anywhere there's a leaderboard and you gamify it,
exactly.
people show up.
If there's a leaderboard, if there's prizes at the end of it, and then they'll encourage them to come with their family, celebrate their wins that day.
And that is in November.
Yes.
Okay. Sunday, November 8th this year. And you also have a gala, which we record this a little bit before we release the April 16th.
Yeah. We have an annual gala. We call it the One Party. It originally started with doing golf and our gala event in the same day. We have evolved to save a little bit of our sanity and split it up into different days. But we are one of the largest galas in Austin as far as fundraising goes. Our goal is $1.85 million. So it's hefty. But we start off with our golf tournament called the One Classic at Falcon Head Golf Club on April 16th. And then we'll transition into dinner and live auction and a paddle race for Fund to Cure that goes straight to mission, and entertainment and dancing afterwards on April 18th at the Four Seasons. This is, again, another way to celebrate our wins in the work that we're doing, but fundraising at a high level towards research. So 100% of the Fund to Cure dollars that are raised go 100% towards research, but it's also a great way for personal storytelling. So we have an honoree family that has done a lot of work over the last 14 years. This year, the Edwards family. We are giving out our first Visionary Award to Dr. Blevins at Texas Diabetes and Endocrinology. And then we have a Fund to Cure family, the Ford family, who we've been working with, and we'll display that video that evening. And then after that, we'll do the paddle race. And so usually we can raise upwards towards $1 million in Fund to Cure just that night. So it's a really powerful evening. And that's really when the community comes together.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
The One Party Gala, go online, check it out. Say you listen on the day that we release this episode, you definitely have time to still get in on that live auction.
You can do the live auction. You can be a remote bidder for the silent auction. You can send in a donation if you feel inclined. Yeah, there's still multiple ways that people can tune in and support.
Yeah, so check it out. And then, of course, if you're listening to this a little bit late, of course, November 8th, you have the walk. So plan to be there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Jenna, anything else you wanted to share? Anything top of mind?
I think that our biggest thing is just making sure people know that we're here. We're spreading awareness about type 1 diabetes. We're here to support the community, and anything that we do for our community is free.
All these breakthroughs happening today, the advanced technology, the easier lives that people are living today and are hopefully in your daughter's lifetime going to see a cure. Yeah. Just know that it takes time and things are accelerating.
Right.
And it's a really exciting time to put your money towards this.
It's the best time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love talking to you about it all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Okay, thanks, Jenna. And that's a wrap on today's episode. None of us get to choose what we're handed in life. Type 1 diabetes doesn't run in Jenna's family, and one day her 4-year-old just had it. And from that point forward, hundreds of extra decisions a day for life. And that's the weight that comes with this diagnosis, and it can land on anyone. There are diseases that used to follow people their whole lives that just don't anymore, right? Everyone has always talked about polio. It isn't something parents even talk about. There's no parents lying awake worrying about it. Not because it was never serious, but because enough people funded the research, ran the trials, and refused to stop until there was a cure. I don't know the background about polio, but nobody talks about it anymore. and we can head there with more cures to be had. And then you hear about the Eldon trial that Jenna shared, and I also did a little bit of research, which is amazing. And you think, okay, we're getting there. Donate at breakthrough-t1d.org. If you're in Austin, the One Party Gala is April 18th at the Four Seasons. And you can, of course, do the online auction, even if you can't attend. And the walk is Sunday, November 8th. Come with your people, make a team, put your name on the leaderboard. You will have earned some good bragging rights. Thanks to Nightlight Insurance Agency for your donation and sponsoring of the podcast. Todd Thompson for editing and mixing. Ashlyn O'Neill for digital content management. Graham Thompson for music. And Just Push Record Studios for making this possible. We will see you next month when we escape into a cause.